look at negative numbers. So you've met these previously in year 7, so just to recap. So we're looking at whole numbers, and these are called integers. So integers can be positive or negative, but they do have to be a whole number. When we're working with integers, it's always a good idea to either imagine or draw yourself a number line. If you're drawing a number line, like the one that's shown here, always start your number line with writing the number 0, and then you can show your numbers to the right, however many you need, and then to the left would be negative. Okay, so let's look at adding and subtracting integers. So if you're adding and subtracting any value to or from one another, first thing you need to establish is the starting point. That's going to be the first number that you have. From that starting point, you're then going to decide, are you going to be increasing the amount, or are you going to be decreasing the amount? So, in other words, are you going to be moving left, or are you going to be moving right from that starting point? I often suggest that you think of negative numbers as cold numbers and positive numbers as heat or warm numbers. If you're going to get warmer, you're going to move to the right, and if you're going to get colder, you're going to move to the left. So we'll start off with an easy example, one that you don't actually need to use the number line for, but let's do it anyway just to show what we're doing. So 5 is our starting number, so we're going to start here at the number 5. We are adding 4, and remember that if there is no sign next to it, it means that that value is positive. So we're adding heat in this case, and so we're going to move to the right. And we're going to move to the right 4 places. So from 5, the starting point, we're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, and we get our final answer of 9. Second question. So this time our starting number is -3. So we're going to find -3 down here. And we're adding on a positive number again, so we're adding on heat. So again, we're moving to the right. And we're moving to the right 8 places this time. So starting at -3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we get the value 5. The next question, we are starting at the number 9. And for this one, we are subtracting heat. We know if we subtract heat from something, it gets cold. So we're going to this time move to the left. And we're going to move to the left 15 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We get -6. Next question, we're starting at 4. This time we're adding cold, so we're adding a negative number. And that means that we're going to move to the left. Okay, so we're at cold, we're going to move to the left because we're going to get colder by 12 units. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we get to the value -8. And the last example on this page, we're starting at -8. And this time we are subtracting cold. So if you're taking cold away from something, that means that you're getting hotter. So we're moving to the right. And we're moving to the right 5 places from our -8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we end up at -3. Obviously, all of these calculations can actually be done on your calculator, making sure that you're using the correct button. So if I have my calculator here, and I'm doing 5 plus 4, it's a straightforward calculation. 5 plus 4 equals 9. The next example, negative. So this time we need to make sure we're using our negative button, which is up here. -3 plus 8 gives us 5. And then 9 take away 50 gives -6, and 4 plus -12 gives -8. And finally, -8 take away -5 gives -3. Okay. So now's a good time to practice these set of questions. I've drawn some number lines at the bottom of the page if you wish to use them. But what I'm going to do is, if you're watching this as the video, it's maybe a good time to pause and attempt these questions on pen and paper. And then I will now fill the answers in so you can check them at a later date. Okay, so we have, oops. 2. Okay, and on to the next page. So in some questions we've seen things like this. So we've got 2 plus -3. So what happens when you add a negative number to something? So in other words, we're adding cold. We know that our value is going to get colder. In other words, when we're adding a negative number, we end up subtracting the value. So, could we write the question in a different way? Rather than 2 plus -3, I could actually just write 2 take away 3. So, to summarize, 2 plus -3 could be written as just 2 take away 3, because this combination here in the middle, having a plus and a negative sign, means that we can replace it with just a subtract. So, as I've said here, if you see a plus and a negative sign next to each other, you can just subtract the positive value. Let's have a look at a similar kind of question. This time we're subtracting cold. So if you are taking cold away from something, it actually gets hotter. So subtracting a negative number is the same as adding the positive value. So if we have 3 take away -4, we could change that. Because we have 2 negatives in the middle together, that combination changes it to plus, and we can now rewrite it as 3 plus 4. Note, if the value at the beginning had been negative, we would still be starting off at a negative starting point, and the fact that we were adding from that starting point would just mean we're going to the right from there. Okay, so if we were to rewrite this question, I could just rewrite it as 4 take away 2, 4 plus 2, -1 take away 3, and -5 plus 3. And our final thing about integers is multiplying and dividing them. So if you're multiplying and dividing integers, you don't need to worry about your starting point or getting hotter and colder. The only thing you need to do is to remember how to multiply or divide. So that's nothing different to normal numbers. And then you need to just look at the signs of the question. Okay, so I would suggest ignore the signs to start with. calculate it as though they were both positive, and then you need to look at the question. So this table here can possibly help you. So when you're multiplying or dividing, if your first number is positive and your second number is positive, then the answer will be positive. If your first number is negative and your second is positive, then the answer will be negative. Similarly, first is positive, second is negative, it would be negative. And if they were both negative, the answer would be positive. It may just be simpler to think one of each means the answer was negative, and both the same is positive. So, if we're asked to calculate 5 times negative 7, I would just do 5 times 7 first. So we know that 5 times 7 is 35. And because this is positive and this is negative, I know my answer is going to be negative 35. Second question, negative 8 times negative 10. So again, we just ignore the signs. We do 8 times 10 equals 80. We then look at the signs. They are both negative, so that means my answer is positive. Negative 42 divided by 6. So again, 42 divided by 6 is 7. So I've ignored the signs. I then look at my question. One of them is negative, the other is positive, so my answer is negative 7. And negative 88 divided by negative 8, so just do 88 divided by 8 gives 11. Look at the signs, they're both negative, so my answer is positive. Here's some questions for you to have a go at. So again, you may like to pause and write these down and have a go at them. Go down to number 10. And now I will finish them off.